Welcome to the Princeton Podcast, where we talk about upcoming events, news, and local businesses. This is Princeton. Play here, stay here.
Before we get started today, just a reminder to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're also recording on YouTube, so be sure to subscribe at This is Princeton MN.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. Today's podcast is brought to you by Princeton Public Utilities. I'm Zach Kitzman. This is Kim Young with Mary Patnode. We're going to start today off with some upcoming events. There's quite a bit of them, so buckle up. What do we got going on?
Here we go. All right. On May 13th is Celebrate World Migratory Bird Day by viewing and learning about local birds at the Bird Tour at Menominee Trail at Sherburne National Wildlife Refuge. That takes place from 8 to 10 a.m. Also on the 13th from 9 to 4 is the Spring Craft Fair at the Princeton Ice Arena. This is going to be a big one, so be sure and stop by there.
Real quick, sorry. If you are a photographer and like to take pictures of birds, I feel like that May 13th, that day would be a good day for you to go out there and capture some awesome photos.
Yeah, it would be, and also I believe they provide binoculars.
Okay.
Yep, so that's kind of a fun thing. Also on the 13th, the Princeton Library is going to be having some master gardeners on hand. They're going to be presenting Planting for Success from 10 to 11 a.m. that day, so lots of things to choose from on the 13th. Then on the 20th, there's several things going on as well. The Princeton Swap Meet will take place at the Mille Lacs County Fairgrounds starting at 1 p.m. There's going to be a plant swap at the Princeton Library from 9 a.m. to noon. And also on May 20th is Princeton's Day of Service at Oak Knoll Cemetery from 9 a.m. to noon. So for that, you want to bring tools such as brooms, rakes, gloves, bug spray. Hopefully not bug spray yet.
Oh, I already saw mosquitoes.
No.
Yeah, and ticks. Ticks are coming out. Yep.
Yeah, bummer.
So the day of service will include picking up sticks, raking, cleaning headstones to help prepare the cemetery for Memorial Day. So you can just sign up at justserve.org, search it by our zip code 55371, and click on Princeton Day of Service. And then lunch will be provided afterwards. So as you can see, there's always something going on in Princeton, and you can find out about all these events and learn more about them at our website at www.thisisprincetonmn.co. And then you just click on events, and you'll find that under the Things to Do tab. So now I'll turn it over to Mary to introduce today's guests.
Hello, everybody. We've got two guests on the podcast today. First, we have Keith Butcher, the General Manager of Princeton Public Utilities. And we also have Nancy Kelly, who comes to us from Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency, otherwise known as SIMPA. They are going to talk to us today about the relationship between the two organizations, the rebate program they offer, and lots more. Welcome to Nancy and Keith. Let's begin by having them tell us a little bit about Princeton Public Utilities.
Yeah, thanks for having us. So yes, I'm Keith Butcher, General Manager of Princeton Public Utilities. We are what is called a municipal utility, which means that we are governed by a 3-member commission that is appointed by the Princeton City Council. We are therefore run and operated by our ratepayers. There's a direct relationship between our customers and how we administer our programs and try to provide services to the community. That includes both electric and water. Most of our rebates are on the electric side, so we'll end up talking about those the most. Princeton was formed back in 1911, just to give people a little bit of a history lesson. A lot of it was to help increase the reliability. We were, back in those days, we were trying to electrify the country, and little municipals around the country were setting up utilities because the investor-owned utilities, the private utilities, were focusing more on the metropolitan areas and weren't really focused on the rural areas. And so we kind of had to do it ourselves. And so we've been around for a long time, and we've always been governed by our ratepayers. It's our ratepayers that sit on the commission and dictate our policies. And so we have a very strong consumer focus. We really want to make sure that we're providing a good service to our customers. That includes a lot of different things, not just rates, but reliability, making sure we're meeting all our regulatory requirements, our rebate programs that Nancy will talk about here in a little bit, but really focused on trying to provide the best foundation of infrastructure that we can. I've been here for about 4 years now, working in this role. And our focus has been on to modernize the utility. We've improved our website. We've done a lot of work to make sure that we're providing a modern service to the community, and we've got a lot of plans going forward into the future. One of those is what we call our electric cap plan. It's a 10-year capital improvements program that will complete a voltage conversion, do a lot of undergrounding, but then also rebuild a couple of the plant subs because they are at the end of their useful life. So it will take some time to implement all of those changes. We've worked with DGR Engineering to do a lot of that work because, as I've had it described to me, whenever a utility is doing work, it's like open heart surgery. You got to keep the patient alive while you're rebuilding key infrastructure. So it's always a challenge to do that and still keep the local economy going. So it takes a lot of planning.
So Keith, I was just wondering, for people who have no idea, what you're talking about as far as that rebuilding of infrastructure. So what will that do for the customer that you said it's kind of reached its limit? And
if you look at the life cycle of something like a utility, like electric, water, sewers in the same boat, typically what happens is you got to spend a lot of money to build up the entire system. You do that through a bond issuance, and then you pay off those bonds over the next 20 to 30 years. And as those bonds come due, you've depreciated your asset. You've worn it out. So you start the cycle all over again. We are in a situation where we paid off some bonds last year. We actually got approval to pay off another bond at our last commission meeting just a week ago. So we're in that cycle where we're paying off the old debt, and now it's time to rebuild it. So we're actually replacing that old debt with new debt, which is just a very sustainable way to keep moving forward with minimal rate impacts.
Okay.
Again, it's just replacing one debt with another debt, but it's kind of how we're designed to operate. We think in decades, 30, 40, 50 years, and we try to spread those costs out over those that benefit from the system that's in place.
Nice.
So that's what I mean by that.
Okay.
If you look at the age of some of our equipment, it is past the engineering life that they're designed for. So.
And you're talking about the equipment like right here in town?
I'm referring to the transformers at the substation, a lot of the infrastructure distribution lines.
Okay.
Poles. A lot of the poles are just needing to be replaced.
Okay.
One of the things that we're doing is, rather than putting in new overhead, we're actually going to underground a lot of the work. That gives us a lot more reliability when storms come through.
Yeah.
Because then you don't have to worry about the poles falling down. It also is helping us, like I said, we're finishing a voltage conversion, which gives us more efficiency on the system. Also, we'll add it into the reliability because we'll be able to backfeed in different directions for the community. So if we lose one component, the other components can work together. It's kind of like what people talk about with a mesh system anymore. Electricity flows through the path of least resistance. So if you have an outage in one area, if you can reroute it and come in from a different direction, that's always valuable. The way the town is structured, we have, from an engineering perspective, we call it 3 points of entry. We have a southern point that comes in through Baldwin Township to our south sub and our plant substation. And then the north sub actually gets power from either the east or west. So if we lose one of those lines, what we'd like to do in theory is be able to use the other two legs to feed the town. We have a little bit of an issue in doing that just because of the voltage conversion hasn't been complete. Once we get that done and we connect the subs a little bit better, that will just add to the reliability. So if we lose a transmission line, we can keep the city intact, and most of the time our customers never even notice that anything's going on, but we do run into a couple of situations every once in a while, which I have a feeling you're going to ask me about, that does result in a bit of a disruption, but then we do have emergency protocols that we work through to get things back up as fast as possible.
Well, yeah, go ahead, Mary.
Yeah, maybe we should just talk about that. We've had a lot of recent power outages, not only in the city of Princeton, but out in our townships as well. Do you want to talk a little bit about what caused that? There was one that was for several hours where the schools were out. I think the hospital maybe was out. Maybe what caused that and how you guys acted quickly
Yeah.
to restore that power.
Yeah, so the first outage, so it was several events that resulted in, I want to say it was like a 40 or 60 minute outage, that first one.
Okay.
We ran into a couple, it was multiple events occurring at once, which, usually when you do emergency planning, you plan for one, maybe two. When you start having 3 or 4 events, you get you do what you can, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The first one, what happened was on actually Friday, April 7th, we had a current voltage transformer fail. From an engineering perspective, what I tell people is it lost its structural integrity. What I mean by that is it blew up.
Sweet. Yeah.
So is that what they, like, a transformer blew?
It was a smaller voltage transformer. It was not our major. It was not the substation transformer.
Okay.
But it was a voltage transformer that regulates some power from the 69,000 volt transmission line that comes into the cell sub to protect some of the switches and some of the equipment that we have there.
Okay.
That failed. I will tell you, I've never seen that part fail in that manner like that before. We did call around too for a couple of folks, and they're like, "What happened?" And we explained to them which part it was, and they're like, "Yeah, that's rather unique." The nice thing is when the part failed, all the switching worked like the way it should. I think we experienced a 5-second blip at that time. Somewhere in there. It was in seconds, I should say. And power came back on, but the part obviously was not working at that point. And from a safety perspective, from a safety net perspective, we needed to replace that. So we did find one and scheduled to have that replaced. However, like I mentioned, it's connected to the 69,000 volt transmission line that comes into the sub. Our local staff are great at distribution work, but when you're dealing with high voltage equipment, you really need other folks to do that. So we coordinated with the local G&T, Generation Transmission Co-op, Great River Energy, and worked to drop the line. And in preparation for that, we had the generation running in the power plant because we lost that. We knew that line was going to go dead, so we were going to carry the town. I can tell you, we've got generators up and running. This was that Wednesday of the outage. Generators up and running. We switched a lot of the load over actually on Monday. All of that was going good. Wednesday morning, we dropped the line, and we're in heaven for about 10 minutes. And then a switch, a controller in the power plant for Unit 7, which is the generator we had running. We have 5 units, 5 diesel generators. Unit 7 tripped, which was not part of the plan. And so we had to figure that out as to why Unit 7 now all of a sudden isolated itself electrically. The problem was that 7 is currently under full load, and we couldn't control it. And when I say we couldn't control it, it means we couldn't turn it off. It was running because it had isolated itself as a safety feature. So what we had to do is we had to get Unit 4 up and running and transfer the load from 7 to 4 so that we could turn 7 off through an emergency stop. Now, you don't want to just stop an engine when it's fully loaded, when it's fully revving. You want to get the load off and then shut it down. So that's what we were doing. As we're transitioning the load from 7 to 4, there ends up being a car accident up by Walmart. An individual had a medical and took out a cabinet. And by taking out that cabinet, took out an entire phase on the north side.
So when you say cabinet, it's not like someone's cabinet in their obviously.
No, if you're driving down the road, you'll see various steel cabinets. There's transformers and then there's other components that we use to route the lines and keep everything connected. So you'll see them in.
Someone hit one of those with their car then?
Yeah, they took out a street light, the cabinet, and went a little bit of further through the right of way. That was when we were switching load from 7 to 4.
So this just added.
While we're switching the load, I was standing in the switchgear room when that event happened, and we felt it. I mean, the voltage surge that came back in through the power plant was,
Like, you've got to be kidding me.
yeah, we're like, you know,
What
maybe
is that
some-
like? Like
Yeah.
to feel
Yeah, what
that
do you mean?
energy? Yeah. Is your hair standing?
everything just, it was just a full blip on the system. I mean, we have power coursing through those circuits, and you could just, I don't know really how to describe it. I mean, everything just kind of shut down. I mean, even on our end, what that was coming in through the generators, it just created a surge through
So while you're
everything.
transferring this power, is power still down for Princeton at this time? Or is it running off 7?
Well, not the entire town was down. We were running
yeah,
off of
South
7.
End.
We were covering some of it.
Yep.
We were just having a problem picking up some of the other stuff.
Okay, got
Because
it.
the transition, we have the town split into different feeder lines, and so we have to do things in sections.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And so as we're going from 7 to 4, that accident occurs. We go immediately into, okay, something really bad happened, like did we just blow a generator kind of thing. Fortunately, we kind of evaluated the situation. Everything was still intact on our end, so we kept moving forward. Got 4 back up and running, shifted the load from 7 on to 4, shut 7 down, and then we started ramping up 3, 5, and 6 to pick up the rest of the town that had gone dark at that point.
Okay.
But we had to do things in stages, and then once we had the generators up and running, you can't just flip a switch and everybody comes on. We had to turn on feeder line by feeder line. So focus on getting the hospital up and running, and then just kind of work through our emergency protocols. Once we got all that switched over, everything worked fine. We did some work on the substation, and then we had to do a whole bunch of cleaning. And then on the next Monday, they came back and we redid everything back to the way it was. Nobody noticed that one, because that time it worked.
Yeah.
We didn't have multiple events going on at that point. So Monday went through without anybody realizing that we were basically doing the same thing. It's just we didn't have all those events occurring at once.
You were keeping the patient alive.
Yeah. The second event that was mentioned is there was a transmission failure, and I don't know the specific details on it. All I know, it was on the transmission line south of town, something that is beyond our control. I guess fortunately, it happened during our normal business hours, so staff was already here. The minute we saw the outage and saw that the transmission line was down, we immediately started our generators. Like I mentioned, we need to, they're engines, so we need to get them warmed up. We need to, it takes a little bit of time to get those running. I think for that event, we had the generators on and load turned back on in 28 minutes. When things are all going right, if we see a major outage and we need to isolate the town, we can, that's probably the best we can do is 30 minutes, just because it's physics. I mean, it's you don't want to thermal shock the engines, because that would be bad.
Yes.
But the guys are very, very well trained. They really care about what they do, and they really take care of the equipment. So when a situation like that comes up, we can turn them on and have confidence that they're going to operate.
Are you able to go in and describe like your generators, how big they are, how many do we have, and I mean, do other towns have generators like this, or?
Some do, some don't. Obviously, the ones that do would be municipals, but not even all municipal utilities have their own generation. There are some that just buy all their energy on the wholesale market and pass it through to the customers. Typically, as utilities got set up, the more remote they were, the more it was imperative that they have their own generation. Grand Marais, who's a peer of ours, is a classic example. I mean, they're out on one radial up on the North Shore. So if they lose that radial, they could be dark for a long time, so they have their own generation. In town, so the power plant's right here on First Street. We do tours for folks, whoever is interested, so just give us a call if you'd ever like to see it. We'd love to show it off. We actually have 7 units. Only 5 are operable. Units 1 and 2 are the original generators that were built or installed back in 1935, 38, somewhere in there.
A couple years ago.
Yeah. They're 3-cylinder engines. They're museum pieces. They're gorgeous. So those are pretty original, but those were shut down, I want to say in 2001. because they couldn't meet the new air permit
Yep.
requirements anymore, so we had to turn those off. I will tell you though, with our staff, they still take care of them, and if the zombie apocalypse comes and we have to hook fuel and air back up to it, I wouldn't bet against them.
Yes, they would work.
So that's kind of nice.
cool.
But beyond 1 and 2, so we have units 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. What's neat about our power plant is you will see a wide range of vintages as well as manufacturers. We've got an Enterprise, we've got a Caterpillar, we've got a Fairbanks Morris, we've got engines from the 1950s and 1960s and 1970s, and Unit 7 is a Caterpillar from 2007. So if you want to see the history of electric generation, this is the place to be.
Right down the street.
Right here, yeah, and it's a
Cool.
gorgeous plant. I really enjoy being a part of it. The engines are all diesel generators. They range in anywhere from 1 or 2 kW to Unit 7, which I think is 5 or 6 kW. In total, we have 12 megawatts of generation. That's 12,000 kW. That doesn't, in the last few years, we've exceeded that peak. I think a year or two ago, we hit 14 megs. So if we experience an outage on the worst hour of the year, we would have to generate and probably still do a rolling blackout if we ran into some major incident. Beyond that, if you look at the other 98% of the year, we can cover whatever the town needs. It does raise some questions about, okay, what does the future hold? There's a lot of questions within our industry regarding renewables and climate change and reliability and affordability, and there's a lot of, it's a very complicated and difficult problem with a lot of smart people working on it. We're continuing to, make sure that we're fulfilling our obligation to our customers and fitting in with the overall societal goals for where our energy comes from.
As the city grows too, as Princeton grows, how does that affect you guys in the supply of energy?
From a supply perspective, we're a part of SIMPA, which was mentioned earlier, Southern Minnesota Municipal Power Agency. So they do all of the long-term resource planning for their members, of which we're a part. So from a supply side perspective, it's really, that's not where my concerns are at. We focus more on the distribution. So it would be making sure that we've got our feeder lines structured in a way so we create a balance. It's really, electricity is pretty complicated in that it's not just, there's a lot more to it than just providing electricity. You want to make sure it's at the right frequency. You want to make sure that you have it at the right voltage. And with electricity, depending upon how you wire things, you just got to be careful of how all of that works.
When you say feeder lines, are those that carry more energy than a regular line, or do you have multiple?
So a feeder line, that's part of our, what we call our primary system. It's like a water main. You would have, just like on the water side, we have a water main that might go down the street and then everybody taps off of the water main for their individual house. Well, we just call it a feeder line on the electric side. We'll have a main feeder, and then that's what each house taps into or each business taps into.
Got it.
So it's your mains, if you want to think of it from that perspective. And we've got a few of those through town, just spider webbed out to serve everybody.
Could you relate to how much energy is running through those main lines, like a comparison? Like, how could you explain to somebody how much electricity is going through that?
Oh, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head for something like that.
If you were to guess. This is a rough estimate, everybody, all right? Don't hold them to it.
Well, like I mentioned before, we hit a peak of 14 megawatts.
What would that be, like,
it's for,
compared to?
That's for like a community of about 5,000 people.
Wow,
There we go.
What a coincidence.
I don't mean to be so flippant, but
No, that's fine.
for a community of our size, that's about what you see. So if you think of every house with every appliance, every light bulb, plus some industry, whether it's manufacturing like plastic products or Glen Metalcraft, or a hospital and a full school district and public works and fire and police, and that's about really the best scale I can give you, because normally when you talk about that stuff, you say so many households, or
Yeah.
Right.
and for a community of 5,000 to have a peak around 12 to 14 megawatts is it's pretty standard,
Yeah.
I would say.
Okay.
There are some communities that are very heavily industrial that might be higher than that, and then there are some bedroom communities that have no commercial enterprises. They're really more, just housing for a major metropolitan area that might be less than that.
Got it.
Well, I was thinking this might be a good place for a break, and then
Yeah.
when we come back, we're gonna talk with Nancy, and then we're also gonna hit you up with some water tower questions.
Sounds good.
But before the break, I just wanna, again, Keith mentioned to visit the website. There's lots of great videos that explain a lot of this stuff. And also the tours.
Oh, I'm
I've taken a
excited.
tour.
I have not.
You can literally eat off the ground in that place. I mean, it is impeccably clean in there. It's
Oh, I'm
just,
excited to go look.
I mean, I just think you'd be surprised to see how cool it is.
Yeah.
So I'll make sure to do that.
Yeah, if I can, just to that
Yeah.
point, during COVID, we were not able to do tours. Everybody was trying to social distance and shut down. So we took the added effort to do a bunch of virtual tours. So if you go on our website, you can do a virtual tour of the power plant, of a water tower, the water treatment plant, of our storage facility. You can see everything that we have here in town. And that's a way for our customers to know what they have locally and what we need to serve them.
Perfect. All right.
We'll be back with water tower talk and how I've thought that they were just decorative. So I'm excited to hear what's really in them.
Yeah.
Can you swim in them?
In 1902, Princeton, Minnesota became the primary potato market in the Northwest. And what are you using that potato for?
You can make batteries out of them. Maybe it'll take us all the way to Princeton.
Maybe we should just use Simpa's EV charging stations.
Smart thinking.
Welcome back. We are going to turn the conversation now over to Nancy Kelly, and she is going to talk to us about the rebate program.
Hi, thanks for having us. So just give you an overview of what I do. I do the commercial rebate program and support actually some of the residential, and then we have a low-income program too. We do a really good job in Princeton. We've got a lot of great relationships. I've been here for about 3 or 4 years as well, and we've got a lot of small businesses that benefit from the program. We've got some big businesses benefiting from the program, plastic products. What we like to do is help people, reduce their energy cost by helping pay part of the cost of the efficient equipment.
So can you tell us how it relates back to Princeton Public Utilities and what's the relationship?
Yeah.
Oh, the relationship.
Or like
Yeah.
what is
okay,
what is
start there.
Simpa to
Yeah.
from like the
Do you-
top? Like
Yeah.
Do you want me to
okay.
get the history on it, or?
I can try.
Okay.
And we'll see how it goes. So Simpa is a power agency, and we work with 18 different municipals. And it started, I think, in the 80s, and it had to do with 2 different cities wanted more power, and they decided to share the cost of a big power plant that was getting built. And that kind of birthed this power agency, and it grew to 18 different municipals. So the main thing we do is we provide the electric power to the municipals. And then I have a responsibility of being in the community, working with customers on the energy efficient part of the program.
So are you in one
Shoot.
region? Because that's a lot.
there
Okay,
you
yeah.
go. So I cover what we call the northern region. Princeton's part of that. And I go all the way up to Grand Marais, which everybody wonders why we cover Grand Marais, because it's in the northern, it's this little blip way up on the
Way
top
up,
of Minnesota. But, yeah,
It's like 5 hours
yep.
from here.
Yeah, it's kind of fun though. It's
So-
a fun little city to
So if
work
you
with.
guys provide the power, how do you guys get the power? Do you guys get it from someone else, or are you at the top?
We are
dispersing it.
Yeah, we're part owners of the big power plant in Becker. And then we have some natural gas generators and some wind generation, some solar generation. So it's about 40% renewables.
Okay.
Cool.
Cool.
Yeah.
And
then-
so as part of this, then you have a rebate program for businesses in all your regions as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so how does a
Yeah.
business, sort of take part in that or work with you on that?
Yeah, we have a lot of information on the website. So if they're interested, they can poke around on there. A lot of times they walk into the office and say, I hear you guys got a rebate program. Who do I talk to? And then they give them my name. I actually live in Minneapolis, and I come to Princeton once or twice a month, and I'll go meet with the business. What I usually tell people is, if you have questions about the rebate, I'm happy to help you. A lot of times, I say, I just need the invoice for what you're installing, and I can usually help you get a rebate on it. And the biggest thing we do is LED lighting. I would say it's 60% of what I do is giving support for projects where they're installing LED lights.
So these businesses are just switching out their lights then?
Yep.
Could we get a couple examples of businesses? So if anyone's listening that has a business or knows somebody with a business like that could be using you,
They would need to be customers of Princeton Public Utilities.
They have to be an electric customer.
An electric customer, okay.
Right. But it ranges. I mean, so it could be just a coffee shop. It could be a restaurant. I've done insurance companies, work with them. Schools. Schools have done a lot.
Okay.
And then industrial. Plastic Products has revamped their whole plant. It was a pretty big project, but they said they knew. I'll tell people, it's the best investment you can make for energy efficiency is getting LED lights. A lot of times, if you just do what we call the LED tubes, which is you've got a 4-foot tube and you replace it with a 4-foot LED tube, it's even if you pay an electrician, so you got labor and material, it's 3 years, maybe less. If you get brand new fixtures, like you're going to remodel a building and we call it a fixture instead of just the tube, the lamp. That could be 5 years, could be less, 4 years. If you have an electrician on staff, it's probably less than a year.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you have a fixed labor cost. So lighting's a really good, it's a really good payback. Yeah.
So when you're talking about 1 year, 5 year, 4 year, whatever that is, that's it pays for itself, basically is what you're saying.
Yeah, it pays for itself that fast. And,
Okay.
I mean, as a general rule of thumb, I tell people if you're going to buy some new LED tubes, we'll cover half the cost of those tubes.
Okay.
If you're going to buy a brand new fixture, I'd say we'd cover about a third of the cost. They just cost more because there's a whole box part of the fixture versus just the tubes.
Super helpful.
So for me, as a non-business owner that has a big building, this to me seems like a no-brainer for some businesses. So I feel like maybe some of them don't know about it, or maybe just we need to spread the word or help you spread the word. I know that it's been on your website because I've been on the website and I know all about the rebate program, but I think a lot of people maybe don't.
Exactly. I read the local news, so I track what's going on with businesses, and people in the office at Princeton Public Utilities will give me leads, and I just call them up, or I walk in the business, say, here, you did a remodel, I could help you get money back for those lights. A lot of times I'm chasing projects because there is a lack of, awareness of the rebate program.
Yeah.
We also do promotions. We do this thing called the Big Check, which is kind of like Publishers Clearinghouse.
Yes.
Where we highlight that business and the amount of money they got. And then, sometimes it gets in the paper. We did Princeton Insurance, Edward Jones. We got in the paper for that.
That's what sparked my interest, was the Edward Jones.
Yeah, he did
was
a great
the picture
job.
with the check.
Yep.
Was with their rebate check.
And we also put it on the Facebook page and everything, LinkedIn.
Yeah, Coburn's, was that a recent?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Coburn's big one.
Yes.
Big one. So they did lights, but we have a lot of other rebates. They're just not as common. Like you'll walk through the store at Coburn's, and all of those reach-in units, the glass door reach-in units, are all brand new, and they have more efficient motors. They have LED lights in there. It's night and day. I mean, what is it? Mike's Discount Foods. All the stuff they did. There's been a lot of grocery stores have been big in Princeton. I think they're all in good shape now.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah.
You're like the hero walking in, saving everybody money and getting them on
Yeah.
the paper.
That's right.
So you can walk into a business that's already started the project,
Yeah,
or that has recently finished, they could still qualify?
yeah.
They have all their
I mean, it's like,
information.
yeah, it's this thing where we know that a lot of people aren't aware of it, and so we don't want to penalize them for not knowing.
Okay.
What was the website again that they can go to and learn more about?
It could be, well, it's www.saveenergyinprinceton.com.
Oh, okay.
So,
Well, that's easy enough.
SaveEnergyInPrinceton.com.
yep.
Cool.
I mean, we could talk a little bit about residential programs.
Yes, let's do that.
Yeah, because, it's, you know, it's not a lot of money, but every time, you know, we have this, it's called the Energy Star residential program. So kind of just use in the back of your mind, oh, that's got the Energy Star label on it. I wonder if I can get a rebate. It'd be a good starting point. You work directly with the office. It's not, you don't need to go through me. But every time, you know, you're replacing a refrigerator, you go to the store and say, I want to see your most efficient model. I want to see the Energy Star, which I know a lot of people are looking for color or size, but
Yeah.
I'd still say try to get Energy Star. But they get, you know, money back on that, and they're additionally going to save energy. And we always are trying to, I just wanted to give you an idea of some of the new rebates we have, which I
Yes.
think are kind of fun. We now have something called a heat pump clothes dryer, and some people would call it a ventless clothes dryer. So I still have yet to see one in the store, but I have been talking. So I go around and visit the big box stores and ask them. I give them the information so they make sure the customers are aware of it.
The stores that are selling the appliances?
Yeah, like
Okay.
Menards
Best Buy,
and
Menards,
that,
yep,
yeah.
okay.
So I haven't seen him in the store, but he goes, but I can get it for them if they want. So that's kind of cool. And then there's this thing called a heat pump water heater, which is, it's a high efficiency electric water heater. And haven't seen one yet in Princeton, but have rebated them in other cities. And the other one I think is kind of fun is, did you know there's an Energy Star coffee maker?
No?
Oh,
So get $50 back.
wow.
So that's a new one this year. I thought that'd be kind of fun to see if we really get people to.
Is that in stores?
It's mostly going to be like for a restaurant,
Okay, so like a commercial, like a big
commercial
bun.
business.
Yep.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Well, and the thing is that with the Energy Star, you're saving money yourself, and
Right.
you're being more efficient, you're getting a rebate, and I think don't you get a tax break too? I feel like
Yeah,
that's
there's there's the Inflation Reduction Act, and we do have some information on that on our website. It will give you some good resources for that. So a lot of it depends on income and things
Sure,
like that. But yeah, tax credits, or sometimes even help pay for them.
Right.
Pay for some of the installation of the project. So it'll be interesting to see how fast that impacts people buying some of this equipment.
I would just like to say that we're not tax experts, so don't,
Okay.
we're not liable for any advice that you may or may not hear.
That's right, yeah, a little disclaimer.
But people, for those of you that like money, seriously, go to SaveEnergyInPrinceton.com and look for ways to save money and keep
Yeah, I
that
guess-
back in your pocket.
I guess
mean,
my
who doesn't
point
love money?
is, it pays itself off, you get a rebate, it saves you
Yeah.
money as you go,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah.
Check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And then check with your local tax expert.
Yeah.
Which is not PUC.
Right, that's right. Was there anything else you wanted to add, Nancy, on that? It's great information.
No, I just happy to talk to people and answer their questions on stuff they want to do.
Perfect.
So, we're on this road trip, right?
Right.
And the plan is to stop in 18 communities across the great state of Minnesota.
Yep, we gotta let the whole state know about SIMPA. They've been around for almost 50 years, and they're determined to provide clean, affordable, and reliable energy.
You guys are doing this all by yourself?
Yep, they even changed the logo and rebranded. Gotta help spread the word.
Well, thanks for telling.
Of course, that's what we're here for.
Okay, well, we're gonna switch gears here a little bit, and we're gonna talk water towers.
Yes. Keith, is there actually water in our water towers?
Yes, with the caveat, just let you know that we often do drain the middle water tower in the wintertime, just because water consumption goes down quite a bit. But yes, all 3 water towers do have water in them, which, as Kim knows, because we've had this conversation, I always ask people if they know why water towers exist.
No?
It is pressure regulation. By pumping the water to a higher level, gravity creates the pressure in the system so that when you turn on your faucet, the water comes out. Would it not be for the water tower, then the water would just be stagnant and there'd be no pressure. So the height of the water tower, the location of the water tower is a pretty involved engineering process by people way smarter than I am to figure out how to do it to get the proper pressure and be able to handle that under a worst case scenario, which is, okay, if there's a fire going on and the fire department pulls off a hydrant, how do we maintain pressure in the houses at the same time? So the water tower height and location, and when I say location, I'm primarily meaning the elevation, is all determined through an engineering calculation to get the required pressure that we need in the entire system.
So what's the process to drain a water tower?
You just open up a valve and let the water go out.
Where?
We obviously, when the time comes, we don't have it full. We'll put it down to its minimum, and then we just got to drain out the remaining bit there, and then we'll just keep the valves closed and just run the town off of the 2 other water towers. We've been doing that because, again, since we're not seeing the volumes in the wintertime that we would like to see, we want to keep water moving through the system so it doesn't stagnate. We have very strict Department of Health guidelines that we follow to make sure that the water remains drinkable. And so we do a few things like that just to make sure that things don't settle, that you get good consistent water flow through the entire system and preserve the quality of the water that we're providing.
How much water is in like one tower?
I don't remember the exact number. I want to say typically you'll see like 250,000 gallons, 300,000 gallons in a water tower. Our water treatment plants, we have 2 of them. One can pump 1 million gallons of water a day, and the other can pump 2 million. So we have 3 million gallons per day capacity, which is serving us very well. I want to say our peak was probably around 1.8. So we've got capacity. The only problem we do run into is water is becoming more and more restricted. It just as more people use it, as we see different climate change issues popping up. The DNR does send out asking people to reduce their water consumption so that we don't use up the aquifers too quickly. And so that's why you'll see in the summertime we might put out notices about irrigation bans or restricting irrigation to some extent. When that happens, it's because it's not a capacity issue on our end. What it is we want to preserve that aquifer, which reaches over a large area of land, which affects multiple communities. We just need to all work together on that. And so we do go through some things in the summertime, where we will try to reduce the impacts on the aquifers, and because we want to preserve those. We're also finishing up a wellhead protection plan update this year, which again is to protect the aquifer. We want to prevent any materials from getting into there and poisoning the aquifer and not making it usable. So we do a lot of work with businesses, with other local government units to try to do everything we can do to protect it. And that includes sealing wells that aren't being used. That includes making sure that people dispose of hazardous waste appropriately, because we don't want anything seeping into our groundwater. That's a very valuable resource that we have, and we don't want to ruin it.
So you mentioned that you like to keep the water moving. Is that how you keep it from freezing then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's and it also helps keep it clean. For lack of a better word, you can get bacteria and molds when you have standing water. having a pressurized system and having people use water, just make sure it's continually moving. So it helps with the entire process to make sure that it's where it should be.
So there's like big waves going on in there, or what? What is it?
I was just going to say, you probably don't offer tours, but if one were to tour, if we were standing in a water tower right now, what are we seeing?
It's just a big tank. We do have a mixer in there that will spin, again, to keep the water moving.
Okay.
But it's just a big tank above ground. It's really that simple. If you walk into the base, and like I mentioned, there is a tour on our website, so you can go and play that video. If you walk into it, you'll see like a little control on one side and just a ladder going up.
Okay.
And that's for our guys to do their maintenance. All of our water crew, they have to climb the water tower. The middle one is I haven't done it, but I hear it's fun because the ladder goes outside and you have to go around the bowl, so you're actually a little bit upside, leaning out.
Which one is the middle one, the Mark Park?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so we have the South Water Tower, which is over by the water treatment plant, over there by the new Taco John's. You can see it from Highway 169.
Yep.
So that's our South Water Tower. The middle one is by Mark Park. And then there is a north one that's a little bit more hidden. Yeah.
Over by Shady Acres or,
Yeah.
that's the one I maybe thought was just there with
Yeah.
nothing in it.
No, we use that a lot. Yep, that helps keep the pressure for the whole north end. That's why that's at that location.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. So otherwise, I guess the alternative would be we'd have to be running pumps 24/7 to pressurize the system, and that's just not cost effective. It's better to just let nature and gravity do the work for you.
So water from everywhere, the whole world comes from water towers? I mean, is that like every city has water towers, that's the only way?
Yeah. And they're also used to help with storage. So like I mentioned, we have a lot of capacity in our pumping, so it's not an issue for us. But for some other communities that might not be able to pump as much as they need on that peak day, they can fill the water towers up and then get through those really tough couple of hours, and then just refill it overnight. And then you drain it down during the day, and then you refill it at night. There are some folks that do that. Again, with our pumping capacities, it's not something we've had to worry about. We use it just for pressure regulation.
Where do you guys pull the water from to fill up the water towers?
So it all comes out of the aquifer. There's a well at Treatment Plant 1, which is right next door to the power plant, just a little building. You can drive by and never think twice about it. It looks like a little shed, but that's the treatment plant. And then there's 2 wells out at Treatment Plant 2, which is just across the street from the Taco John's. That building is where we have wells 8 and 9.
Nice.
Well, which was the original water tower, the first?
I don't think the first still exists. I think there used to be one at the old
right
city
downtown.
hall.
You're right, it did.
So, but that's obviously not there anymore.
Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And so it sounds like the 3 we have are sufficient for quite some time, would you say? Or?
Yeah, we're actually going to go through a process of washing the South Water Tower. I don't know if you noticed, but because of rain and stuff, it just, it gets a little grimy. We want to obviously protect the paint and the casing around it so that it lasts a very long time. So we'll be going through a washing of that. The North Water Tower, the one you mentioned, is actually scheduled for a rehab in about, I want to say, 3, 5, 7 years. We're going to have to do a rehab on that. That's probably going to cost about $500,000.
What does that entail?
Just preserving all the structural integrity, making sure, basically rebuilding part of it, just preserving the tank so it stays there for a long time. I mean, being out in the elements, you're always concerned about rust and deterioration. So that is, I think, the oldest tower we have.
Okay.
It's time to, we would rather
Give it some love.
Yeah, we'd rather fix it on our schedule than run into a problem.
Right, when it's 30 below.
Yeah, high winds. Good.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, this has been really interesting.
Yeah.
I've learned a lot today, as I always do whenever we talk to Princeton Public Utilities. Anything else, or?
I'm good.
Yeah, well, thank you guys both for being here. We really appreciate it. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, saveenergyinprinceton.com. I'm telling you, go there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you guys for joining us today on the Princeton Podcast. Thank you to Nancy from SIMPA and Keith from Princeton Public Utilities, and our extra big shout out to Princeton Public Utilities, who is today's sponsor. So we'll be back again on our next podcast on May 23rd. And then until then, this is Zach, Kim, and Mary signing off. This is Princeton. Stay here. Play here.
Podcast produced by Kitzman Creations, music by Charles Moe. Be sure to subscribe to the Princeton Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Also, to view our awkward moments, check us out on our YouTube channel and visit us at www.thisisprincetonmn.co.